What's up everyone, hope you're doing well today. This video today is going to talk about how to have good at-bats in order to score more runs. If you've ever asked a good player how to get better at hitting or score more runs, they will all tell you the same exact thing. Be patient at the plate. Some will add a little more to it and say always take the first pitch, make the pitcher work, look for the fastball, etc. And these are all true and important, but despite the simplicity of the advice, they are much easier said than done. In this video, I will go through my mental approaches at the plate, as well as the physical tips that can help you improve and practice patience at the plate. Last year for MLB The Show 18, I did a video called 12 Tips for Improving Plate Discipline. It's still a good tool to supplement this video if you want to watch it after this one, so you can find the link in the description. The interesting thing about hitting in MLB The Show is that there are almost always improvements that can be made. Whether you're a beginner or a veteran, improving your plate discipline and at-bat quality are always important, but the way you go about doing that can be very different. So let's start with the beginner's approach. When you first start out, most players are just trying to get their timing and accuracy down at the plate. They swing at everything and are purely focused on squaring up baseballs. A lot of new players also start out with Road to the Show or some other offline modes, where the CPU tends to throw a lot of hittable fastballs. Eventually, a lot of people shift to online play, where experienced pitchers will exploit impatient hitters by throwing everything off of the plate. So for that hitter, the approach can start as simple as, how do I stop myself from swinging at junk? You may even have played this game for 3 years and still swing at everything, and even a 10-year vet like me will get into bad habits by grinding offline game modes for too long before jumping online. So this is where I try 2 specific things. Before I explain them, keep this in mind, you don't have to have big fancy plans and approaches at this level. Baseball can be very hard and humbling, but you can make it simple for yourself. Okay, so these 2 things are looking for fastballs and shrinking the zone. I've noticed that some hitters get in their heads and try to hit every kind of pitch on every swing. This is how hitters confuse themselves and foul off fastballs down the middle. Yeah, pitchers exploiting your impatience with sliders in the dirt is bad, but you never want to be the guy that the opponent feels like they can just throw 4 fastballs at you in an at-bat. In order to build the confidence and consistency in hitting fastballs, you will need to find a way to practice that works for you. For that, I have a video in the card and description as well. So that might be hard to do, but I'd recommend not swinging at anything breaking before 2 strikes if you're missing hittable fastballs. I'll get into exactly how you can do that in the physical tips section because it's a little bit more advanced, but just start with this if you're a beginner. And don't forget the second tip here, which is shrinking the zone. On your screen you see the strike zone as a big rectangle, but the edges of the zone can sometimes be hard to reach with the PCI, and oftentimes the pitcher ends up getting you to chase a pitch just off the plate. What you really want is a fat, meaty pitch right over the middle of the plate, not only because it's easier to hit, but also because you're not chasing bad pitches. To do this, you can try to imagine the strike zone as an oval, with the corners of the strike zone completely out of the oval and the edges not touching. Unless you're facing a really good player or someone who just happens to be locked in on the mound, you're almost guaranteed 1 to 2 pitches in this oval every single at-bat. But the only way to earn pitches in the oval is to make sure the pitcher throws enough pitches and to not swing at his junk. Again, more of those tips are coming at the end of the video, and especially in the 12 tips video that I talked about earlier. But first, make sure to try out these 2 specific mental changes to see if that helps you improve before you get into anything deeper. Remember that these kinds of things are 2 steps forward, 1 step back, so you may see a regression eventually, but when you see that regression, it's probably because you're going to start facing better players. And at that point, you want to try out the tips in the next section for more intermediate and advanced at-bats. As you move up the ranks or start streaking in events in BR, you're going to notice that you can't run the same game plan all the time. Shrinking the zone and sitting fastball can honestly make you at least a 500 player, but of course there's still room to grow. As you face tougher pitchers, you'll get worked backwards, and some pitchers will almost never throw over the middle of the plate, and they'll still get you out, especially with dudes in ranked who have like 90 plus control. You may go through all or most of a game without swinging at many junk pitches or tough breaking balls, yet the offense just can't get started. Before we talk about how to get the offense rolling, let's set up a mindset for what we are trying to accomplish and the tools that we have at our disposal. Here are the general rules for what constitute a good at-bat. So a hard hit ball, extra base hits, 6+ pitches in an at-bat, 3+ pitches after 2 strikes, sac bunts, sac flies, and walks. Over the course of the game, you want to shoot for about 2/3 of your at-bats being good at-bats, and you want most of them to come from the hard hit balls. Sometimes you can't help it if a pitcher gets you out on 3 or 4 good pitches, or if you just happen to get underneath a hanging breaking ball. Sometimes you even get lucky and get a blue base hit on the first pitch. In those types of at-bats, you were probably either being intentionally aggressive because you thought a pitcher was going to come right at you, or maybe you were just on autopilot mentally and weren't focused enough on the at-bat. This is where the good at-bat criteria mindset comes into play. To me, instead of coming into every at-bat, maybe being overly patient or overthinking with this criteria, it's actually a great way to stop a string of bad at-bats before they happen. So if I lead off an inning with a gross pop-up, I know the next at-bat I'm going to take at least 2 pitches or not try to hit a home run after 2 strikes or whatever the situation calls for. The next at-bat after a pop-up, I want to make sure I double down and have a good at-bat right there. A lot of intermediate and even good pitchers are not able to deal with this kind of adjustment. They get so used to cruising that all of a sudden when you stop swinging at the first pitch, the next thing you know is that you walk twice and get a rally going. With sabermetrics and everything, this list that you see is probably a little bit outdated, but just having a mindset like this can give you an edge. Over time, you will find out what works for you, and you can actually have your own set of good at-bat criteria to stick to. Personally, I like the idea of trying to get at least 5 pitches per at-bat. As you progress through a game, you may find yourself in the 6th inning with 4 hits and 1 run, but you're only down by 2. So you know you still have a good shot at the win. But you know you can't do what you've been doing for the first half of the game, even though you feel like you haven't been outmatched. There is one tool in the middle of the game which is invaluable in moments like these, and that is the pitcher analysis tool. Side note, if you press right on the D-pad in between pitches, you can actually see how many of each pitch a guy has thrown. This is nice for quick info if you're just not sure what to look for, but the pitcher analysis tool in the pause menu has a crazy amount of info, which can help on top of that. If you've watched any streamers on Twitch, you've probably seen them go into the batter analysis section to complain about lineouts. This is very similar but shows you some more pitcher-specific info. You can go really deep and see what he throws for the first pitch, and what he throws on 2-strike counts and things like that. But I like to keep it simple and look for a couple things. First, I want to know how many of each pitch a guy throws. You may realize that someone never throws the R1 pitch and sometimes even the square pitch, and then you realize that the 5-pitch pitcher is really just a 3-pitch pitcher. Some guys will even throw their square pitch more than their X pitch if it's a sinker, or maybe a changeup or something like that. Nolan Ryan comes to mind. After that, I tend to break down the location of each type of pitch. There are countless times where I've gone into the analysis completely confused by what I've been trying to hit, but then realized the opponent only throws certain pitches in certain spots. Like every single sinker is up and in, every single slider is low and away, and every single curveball is low and in off the plate. If the opponent throws one pitch more than the others, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to get that pitch in that spot in every single at-bat, and then you just wait for it. In that scenario, you never want to look for the curveball because it's rarely a strike. But looking for a slider is still on the table, especially for pitchers whose sliders tend to hang. I also make sure to look for which pitch is finding the middle of the zone most often. Sometimes, a guy's changeup is only beating you because of the speed differential, even though he throws it right down the middle every at-bat, and you keep looking for the fastball, which the opponent is spotting pretty well on or just off the corners. All of a sudden you realize that, and you put 2 good swings on a changeup in that inning, and you're right back in the game. So don't sleep on that pitcher analysis tool. So many late game comebacks are born in that menu. Keep it simple to start, but don't be afraid to explore. Keep in mind there's a pause timer online, so you need to know what you're looking for before you go in there, so try practicing with it offline first. There's one more main mental approach to plate discipline at the more advanced levels. This is taking strikes to get better strikes. Remember, for the beginner stages, we just wanted to make sure we weren't swinging at junk. Shrinking the zone accomplishes this as well. You're going to take strikes on the corners, but that wasn't the main focus. Here, we are assuming you have knowledge of the strike zone to the point where, if you didn't have the controller in your hand, you'd recognize balls and strikes out of the hand of the pitcher. Shrinking the zone at the beginning was mostly for beginners who wouldn't be able to tell a ball from a strike even if it was staring them in the face. But when you're trying to catch up to 99 miles an hour on Hall of Fame, a fastball down the middle and slider off the edge look pretty similar coming out of the hand. Side note right here, check out Pitching Ninja on Twitter, you won't regret it. His link is in the description, and you'll see exactly what I mean. First of all, for a lot of people on the higher difficulties, you need to commit to a pitch before 2 strikes. It is very tough to cover multiple pitches with these pitch speeds unless you have a lot of experience. Just like for beginners, you want to make sure that you can cover the fastball, but you will likely need to look for that fastball somewhere other than the middle of the zone. The average pitcher at the higher levels will throw you less than 1 fastball down the middle per inning, and the good pitchers in the higher levels will throw them maybe twice per game. In righty-righty or lefty-lefty matchups, I start by looking up and in with the PCI, because it's the shortest distance from the pitcher's hand to the plate, so the ball gets to that spot the quickest. You can cover a fastball down when you're looking up, but not often vice versa. If you manage to hit a couple of high pitches hard, You basically have a license to look for the ball down for the next few batters. If there's one thing pitchers are scared to do in this game, it's throw the ball up and in if they know that you're capable of hitting it. They will also abuse you up there if you realize that you never hit it. Depending on your reaction time and physical ability, you might not be able to hit a pitch away if you're looking in. That's where it's important to take that strike in hopes of a better one later in the at-bat. So maybe you take a couple strikes on the outside half, waiting for one on the inside, find that you get that pitch, and then you don't miss it. I like to try to let the ball come to my PCI rather than to try go out and jab at it. Like I said, personally, I like that pitch up in the zone, but many pitchers live at the bottom of the zone. Sometimes the way that your TV or monitor is set up, you just see the bottom of the zone better than the top, and that's totally fine. Different hitters have different strengths and still succeed. Heck, Mike Trout himself is pretty much an average hitter on balls at the top of the zone, but where he does his absolute damage is low in the zone. He just does not miss pitches down there. But he is very aware of his weakness. Of course, he works to reduce that weakness physically, but at the end of the day, he's a pure low ball hitter, and with that strength alone, he puts up unreal numbers. Sure, the ability to hit low pitches is great, but he's not the only dangerous low ball hitter in the league. But the reason why he's so incredible is that he refuses to swing at the stuff he knows he can't hit. If you know you're hitting the low pitch every time and can't catch up to the high stuff, don't worry about it. The only time you need to sit up there is if your opponent goes up there every single at-bat. If you've seen my zone hitting tips video, I talked about this in detail as well. And one last thing I'll say before getting into the physical tips is that there are times when the pitcher will try to get you to get yourself out, especially with runners in scoring position situations. With the bases empty, pitchers are generally more aggressive. A base hit isn't a big deal, and a solo homer isn't the worst thing in the world, but with runners on, the stakes are high. So if you got on base with back-to-back first pitch singles on fastballs, don't expect a third. Against good pitchers, you will see a different approach. Slider off the edge looking for a double play, fastball inside looking for the pop-up, etc. Don't be the guy making that first pitch out in that at-bat. Remember the pressure is on the pitcher in those situations. Let him make the mistake and don't miss it when he inevitably does. Okay, we've talked plenty about the who's, the whys, and the whats, but let's talk a little bit more about the hows. Let's start with how to practice recognizing pitches. The take until 2 strikes approach is a great way for a free swinger to first start pushing your limits and seeing what you're capable of. First of all, you make the pitcher work and get tired. Second, you get to see 2 strike patterns that you weren't seeing much before. Third, you get a chance to watch pitches without intending to swing at them and just seeing how they look out of the pitcher's hand. Fourth, you get to see how well you fare with 2 strikes and the fact that you can still score runs or at least get on base. You'll even see how willing pitchers are to walk you when you let them. Now there's 2 reasons why this is a good beginner's approach or an approach to break a slump rather than a main game plan. First is that the good pitchers will literally start throwing the first 2 pitches down the middle and getting the pitcher's confidence up. Yeah, you can go out and swing at the first pitch here and there to keep them honest, but you will still have small windows of opportunity. And second is that statistically it's putting you at a disadvantage. 2 strike counts are just hard to succeed with. But remember what we said earlier about using the good at-bat criteria to break up bad at-bats? This can be a nice way to follow up a first pitch pop-out by a guy who hits lefties well, and you thought that you could jump on the pitcher. Maybe next up you have a lefty that doesn't hit lefties well, and he's pretty much guaranteed to make an out anyway. You can put down the controller and let him throw you 2 strikes. In the heat of the game, you'll probably at least see 4 pitches, and then maybe you can foul off or lay off a couple breaking balls in the dirt, and there you just turned a guaranteed out into a good at-bat. So that 2 strike approach is one way to learn and absorb plate discipline as a beginner in the game. Or maybe as a beginner in the world of plate discipline, maybe you've been playing the game for a while, but maybe you're a beginner as it comes to discipline. After a while, you'll pick up on patterns and start to naturally see balls and strikes better, but a pitcher's goal is to disrupt a hitter and make them more uncomfortable. So you'll always run into guys that seem like they're one step ahead. If you're feeling a little jumpy, the first step is to take the first pitch of every at-bat, even if it's right down the pipe. Especially when it ends up being a ball, you'll feel way more comfortable in that at-bat, even laying off close balls. Smart pitchers will sometimes show their hand, thinking that you'll swing early in the count, so they'll spin a breaking ball up there early, leaving you knowing that you're still going to see a fastball pretty soon. Now we said earlier that it can be tough to pick up on a slider off the edge if you're looking for a fastball. That's true, and it holds true even in the MLB. Early in the at-bat when you're not at risk of a strikeout, and you know that the opponent has been throwing a decent amount of fastballs, it's totally fine to guess and look silly on a breaking ball, because you were anticipating the hittable pitch. In 2 strike counts, especially when you have no idea what to look for, your best thing that you can tell yourself is to hit the fastball to the opposite field. Yes, you're much less likely to smack an extra base hit, but then you're able to cover many more pitches except maybe the inside fastball, although in this game you'll probably be rewarded with a bloop hit anyway. By looking to slap a fastball, you will have more time to recognize whether a pitch will be a strike or not, and you'll be able to recognize if a pitch is breaking and where it's going to go. You even have a chance to pull an inside off-speed pitch or stay on a breaking ball away without swinging way out in front of it. If you're always aggressive and trying to slug fastballs, you will be abused by the off-speed and even swinging at fastballs off the plate. The best way to practice this is Challenge of the Week. When you get to 2 strikes in Challenge of the Week, just contact swing with circle and commit to hitting the fastball the other way. If you've ever wondered why the high scores look so ridiculous, this is how it's done. Never getting beat by a breaking ball because you're never selling out for the fastball. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to score more runs. Unless you're at the very top or very bottom of the ladder, we all have games where we seem to hit everything and games where we can't buy a run. Some of the most frustrating games come when we pitch great but lose 2-1, maybe even right after a game where we scored 8. Having good at-bats is almost always the difference between winning and losing a low-scoring game. Through this video, I hope that you can start winning those games at the level that you're currently at. Sure, you'll run into those games again at some point, but hopefully it's after you've jumped already 200 points in ranked or started winning 3 more games in an event run. You can pick and choose what you want to use from this video, depending on your weaknesses, but I think any of these approaches will help you almost immediately. So there's a lot of different methods in here depending on your skill level and how much you've already practiced these kinds of things. Also kind of depending on your baseball IQ and if you've played baseball in real life at certain levels, or if you kind of jump straight into MLB The Show. There's a little bit different of a knowledge gap. So if this video did help you out, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and share this video with anybody that needs more help. If you're looking for daily content from me, I stream every weekday on Twitch at 4 p.m. Central Time. And don't forget to check out my earlier videos about hitting tips. And also if you're new to the game, I have a complete Diamond Dynasty guide if you're looking for how to build your team with a budget squad or a grind squad. Again, thank you for watching, and I will see you later.